Mikola, Braun, Dalmas, Kankinen, Schumacher, Raikkonen. All of these legendary motorsport figures couldn't have done what they did without a puppet master pulling the strings in the background. And that puppet master is John Todt, the most important man in the history of motorsport who never sat behind the wheel. The Frenchman grew up as the son of a doctor, destined to be a businessman, getting a degree at the École de Cadre School of Economics and Business, ranked as one of the best management schools in the world. But young Todt had his heart set elsewhere. Motorsports. Inspired by his F1 heroes Dan Gurney and Jim Clark, he started racing. Sure, he was still studying his business degree, but nonetheless found time to take his father's Mini Cooper S rallying. And he wasn't great, not necessarily because of a lack of skills. He was training at the Winfield Racing School, but because his heart wasn't really in the driver's seat, it was in the passenger seat. Turns out he was a pretty good co-driver, and began working his way into international competition. And as the 60s became the 70s, he started winning multiple international rallies, usually with Jean-Pierre Nicolas, and most impressively, his win was with Jean-Pierre Belchois, and Patrick DePaler in a Matra MS650 Group 6 prototype racer. You know, back when they used to race fully fledged Le Mans prototypes on closed public roads. And Todt navigated one of those prototypes to an overall win at the 1970 Tour de France Automobile. The drivers liked him because he was calm and calculated, while the teams liked him because he took that calm under pressure co-driver talent and paired it with his management degree, a brilliant combination that made him a perfect asset for team management. The creation of the WRC only served to make his skills even more valuable. He and Ahmed Warbold scored Fiat's first ever WRC victory at the 1973 Rally Poland, and then got another win in Austria that same year. Soon, he started winning with Hanna Mikola, and found himself at Talbot with Guy Fricklin. This was his catalyst, the move that started all. Talbot Peugeot Chrysler worked with Lotus, weird combination I know, to take their generic Sunbeam hatchback and turn it into a champion, and it worked. We've already covered the Lotus Sunbeam story in a previous video, so I'll be brief. Talbot won the 1981 WRC Constructors title thanks to an extremely competitive season, excellent reliability, and consistent podium finishes from Fricklin and Todt. The pair only won a single rally, Todt's fourth and final WRC victory by the way, but the team took an additional 6 podiums to take the crown. And many consider Todt to be instrumental in that charge, not just as a navigator, but as a team manager and communicator. Ari Vatanen called him the master of the short phone call. And this is important, because after Talbot Peugeot's shock success in 1981, Peugeot decided to actually invest in the team for these upcoming Group B regulations. Now, to be clear, buying Talbot nearly bankrupted the already struggling French company, and they needed to turn the brand's image around. And they also needed someone to run their full factory racing program so they could begin to turn their image around. Well, Todt's organizational mastery got him the gig, so he sat back and did nothing. He simply took the time off, gathered up a brilliant team, and watched throughout 1982 and 1983. He saw the superiority of the all-wheel drive Audis, but he also saw how they got beaten by the mid-engine Lancias, and decided to combine them into the perfect rally car. The Peugeot 205 T16 was the world's first mid-engine all-wheel drive production car, and it made its WRC debut in 1984. It was Peugeot's first factory race car since the 1913 Type L3 Indy car. Now, thanks to their experience, 1984 saw another intense championship showdown between Lancia and Audi, but by the end of the season, something amazing was happening. Peugeot was getting their act together, and took 3 back-to-back-to-back wins to end the season. And the crazy part is, the 205 worked on any surface. In its debut year, the T16 beat the Quattro on loose surfaces and the 037 on tarmac. The all-wheel drive gave it the traction, and the engine placement minimized the understeer that plagued the front-engined Audis. Sure enough, nobody could stop Peugeot in 1985, with the exception of a lone Maxi Turbo winning the tragic Tour de Corsa and Toyota Reliability conquering Africa. Peugeot won 7 rallies on the trot. Even Audi's maniacal 600 horsepower Sport Quattro S1E2 couldn't match the Evolution variants of the 205. Todt had made Peugeot World Rally champions in just 2 years. But next year was his true test, the Lancia Delta S4. Like the T16, it was mid-engined, all-wheel drive, used advanced lightweight materials, and made even more horsepower. Reportedly 1,000 horsepower in testing and 550 horsepower on the stages. This would be a rallying showdown to end all showdowns. Until it wasn't. The partnership of the Delta S4 and Todt's old Talbot teammate Henry Toivonen was unquestionably the best pairing in the WRC, but even Henry could only tame the S4 for so long. At the Tour de Corsa, the Delta flung Toivonen and Sergio Cresto off a ravine and into a fiery explosion. All that was left was a charred aluminum roll cage, and just like that, Group B was dead, and without their star driver, Lancia finished second, just 15 points behind Peugeot. Jean Todt was furious over the premature cancellation of Group B, to the point of trying to take legal action against FISA. But it was useless. Group B was dead, and the 205 T16 had no purpose anymore. Regardless, he was, if nothing else, a businessman, and good businessmen do not let things go to waste. So he took essentially the Evolution 3 variant to the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb in 1987, and lost to Audi. But then, they gutted the 205 Pikes Peak and stuffed its drivetrain into a brand new 405 T16, and got back-to-back wins in 1988 and 1989, breaking the all-time record in the process. He also led Peugeot in the exact opposite direction, the Dakar Rally. Once again, finding success, 2 victories with heavily modified 205s, and 2 more with heavily modified 405s. All in the course of just 4 years. These racing programs gave Peugeot an identity, and the 205 became the best-selling car in all of France. They also gave the world front and center visibility to Jean Todt's often reclusive management style. He was a subtle genius, firm but never harsh, determined but not cruel. He was the perfect boss who wasn't afraid to make hard decisions, no matter how strange. Famously, he decided the winner of the 1989 Dakar Rally by a coin toss. Ari Vatanen and Jackie Ickx were pushing each other too hard, and with Peugeot's enormous lead, Todt was taking no chances on safety or victory. It was Vatanen who won the coin toss, if you were wondering. And interestingly enough, that toss proved to be the only real controversial management decision he had to make over the course of his rallying program. Even when drivers were struggling, Todt gave them contracts, if he had confidence in them, to take pressure off of their shoulders and get their heads straight. And it worked. The results came in and he became a driver favorite because he was a team boss who understood what it was like to compete. Like Brad Pitt in Moneyball. The rallying glory and smooth management style gave him a lot of leverage at Peugeot, and he used it to go after a personal goal: the 24 Hours of Le Mans. The Frenchman always watched Le Mans growing up, and it was another element of his racing history that put him on the path that he was on at that moment. So what better way to pay tribute than to win it? So as the rally program would wind down in 1988, Peugeot-Talbot Sport announced their newest intention: to enter the 3.5-liter Group C Le Mans regulations for 1991. The 905 was a 640 horsepower carbon fiber V10 screamer that was as reliable as a French V10 sounds. Let's just say 1991 was a learning experience. Even being gifted a front row by FISA didn't mean anything in 1991, as both cars retired in just 6 hours. But it had potential. They scored 3 wins across the 1991 World Sports Car Championship, finishing second overall. So the 905B made nearly 100 horsepower more than the previous year and did it while being reliable. They finished every single race. And by finished, I mean winning every single race except the opening round where they got stuck with seconds. More importantly, one of those wins was Le Mans. Todt achieved his dream by finishing first and third that year. In 1993, they were even better as Peugeot dominated the event with a 1-2-3 finish. He had achieved what he wanted to achieve and helped kill the class in doing so. Group C was dead after 1993, which meant he needed something new to do. A new challenge. He reckoned that since the 3.5-liter engine rules were basically just F1 engines under a different name, Peugeot should open a factory Formula 1 program. Peugeot agreed, as an engine supplier. Well, Todt wasn't having any of that, and wanted to move on from the French team that he helped create. In that exact moment, the motorsport gods gave him an opportunity that would change the racing world forever. Todt was good friends with F1 king Bernie Ecclestone, and through friends of friends, Todt met Luca di Montezemolo, who had just become CEO of Scuderia Ferrari. Just like that, Luca offered Todt the role of general manager, the first foreigner to lead the Scuderia in nearly 10 years. And he had a mountain to climb. Ferrari may have been the most successful team in history, but that was mainly down to quantity rather than quality. Ferrari hadn't won a race since 1990, the Constructors' title since 1983, and the Drivers' title since 1979. Their driver list was incredible. Didier Pironi, René Arnoux, Michel Alboreto, Nigel Mansell, even the great Alain Prost couldn't win with the prancing horse, stating in 1991, "Crisis is almost a normal state at Ferrari. Some things never change." But Todt wanted to change them. And he immediately saw the cultural toxicity that plagued the team's structure. The internal politics from the board and lack of accountability ran rampant throughout the team. So Todt did something never attempted. Get rid of it. He and Luca agree that the Ferrari board should be locked as far away from team management as possible so that any necessary changes can be made without a fuss. Then, Jean hired the Briton of Nigel Stefani, who transformed Ferrari's pit stops into becoming essentially prime Red Bull 1.0, and that was all that Todt could do before the 1994 season, which was a pretty bleak year overall. The deaths of Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger, the multiple near misses where other drivers almost joined them, injured fans, and Benetton being an absolute force of illegal chicanery. It was not a good year. But on the upside, Todt was already seeing some results. The John Bernard designed 412 T1 was an immense improvement over the previous years and scored 11 podiums to finish third in the Constructors' Championship. One of those was Gerhard Berger's win at the 1994 German Grand Prix, Ferrari's first win in nearly 4 years. 1995 was exactly the same. Ferrari scored 2 more points than they did in 1994, and once again got third, while John Alesi got his only victory at the Canadian Grand Prix. But Todt had a 3,000 IQ place cooking up for 1996. He targeted the undisputed best driver on the grid, the sports car racer turned back-to-back champion, Michael Schumacher. And he got Schumacher with a $25 million payday and a simple option. The opportunity to mold a team into their perfect image. It also helped that Schumacher was not a fan of the 1995 Benetton, which was basically the 2024 Red Bull of its day, a twitchy bugger that only the greatest of all time could extract speed out of. The Ferrari was much more composed, but that came at a cost. They simply could not match Adrian Newey's masterstrokes at Williams. So even though Schumi was the better driver than Hill and Villeneuve, Schumacher only mustered 3 wins in 1996, and Ferrari scored less than half of Williams' points haul. Things were getting concerning. This was Todt's 3rd year of failure, and the board was questioning this foreigner's ability to get Ferrari trophies. But Todt and Schumacher ignored them and fulfilled their preseason promise. In 1996, we will score 3 wins. In 1997, we will challenge for the championship. The two of them also realized that Jean Bernard and Gustav Brunner may have designed the first winning Ferraris in 4 years, but they weren't championship-winning Ferraris. They needed a better design team. So Schumacher told Todt to hit Control-C on his old Benetton team, and then hit Control-V on Ferrari. Fatefully, Todt agreed, opened his checkbook, and bought out Benetton technical director Ross Brawn and chief designer Rory Byrne, and moved them to Italy. And with that, the dream team was cemented. The F310 went from being a parachute, as Schumacher called it, to a championship contending car. It wasn't as good as 1997 Williams, but Schumacher and reliability made it a good match, ultimately finishing last in the driver's title that year. Wait, what? Yeah, 1997 saw this new ruthless face of Ferrari for the first time. Heading into the season finale at Jerez, Schumacher was leading Villeneuve by 1 point, and was also leading the race with a Canadian rapidly chasing him down. Villeneuve aggressively sent it up the inside on lap 48, and Schumacher intentionally turned into him. But unlike 1994, Schumacher was the one out of the race this time, and not only did Villeneuve win his only world championship, the FIA was done with championship-deciding collisions and disqualified Schumacher from the whole thing. Todt may have assembled the dream team in 1997, but they needed to iron out their inefficiencies and clear out the last remnants of pre-Todt Ferrari. 1998 and 1999 served as a battle between the titans. Schumacher versus Häkkinen, Byrne versus Newey, Todt versus Dennis, Ferrari versus McLaren. And McLaren was just too good. They swept both titles in 1998, and although I would argue Ferrari had a marginally better car in 1999, they lost the driver's title because Schumacher missed most of the season with a broken leg. Although Ferrari did get their first constructor's title in 16 years, and came to within 2 points of that driver's title. And it was just in the nick of time. Todt was getting hounded again from the board after 6 years of blank checks and no titles. Well, there was their first trophy, and with it, the momentum heading into the 21st century. McLaren put up good fights in 2000, 2001, and 2003 with Häkkinen, Coulthard, and Raikkonen, but Ferrari had cracked the code they needed to ruin Formula One. They were operationally perfect. They turned a sport renowned for randomness and unpredictability and made it anything but. We had seen this before with Alfa Romeo in 1950 and McLaren in 1988, but to be so consistent for so long was impossible to conceive of during Ferrari's last great era with Niki Lauda. They made the perfect package. Schumacher's speed, Stephanie's pit stops, Byrne's engineering, Braun's weekend management, and Todt clearing a path through the bureaucracy to let them get it done. With the whole team firing on all cylinders, it let them de-stress the machinery. Those Ferraris were bulletproof and served as the first truly modern F1 car. All the grip and all the speed in the world, day in and day out, all season long, without fearing the gearbox will go bang. And there was one other thing Ferrari was known for: adopting Schumacher's ruthless mindset. Todt made it clear, Schumi was the clear number one, we go all in on his championship, and once he wins, he helps the team win the Constructors' title, and the number 2 driver finish second. There were no limits to this, culminating in Austria 2002, where Barrichello had to give Schumacher the win on the finish line. Even with the FIA changing the point system and banning team orders in 2003, Ferrari still clawed both titles. They weren't just a team, they were a machine built to win championships, and they did it exceptionally well. Schumacher finished every single race of 2002 on the podium, a feat never been done before or since, even by Verstappen in 2023. By 2004, this was a team so confident that they successfully beat Renault at their home race with a 4-pit stop strategy on pure pace. The pit crew had to be perfect 4 times without fail, and Schumacher had to run an entire race of qualifying laps without crashing or the car breaking down, and they did it. But here's the thing about confidence. Too much of it, and people get jealous, no matter how earned it is. Now, as long as the Dream Team was winning, they were safe. But if you stop, and eventually everyone stops. The FIA was tired of Ferrari winning the Constructors' title 262 to 119, so they went scorched earth on the meme of Ferrari International Assistance. One of Ferrari's greatest advantages was their relationship with Bridgestone. Bridgestone designed their F1 tires with Ferrari in mind specifically. More specifically, they were designed to perform at maximum capacity for short periods of time to allow for fast running and multiple pit stops. Therefore, it would be tragic if, I don't know, the FIA banned tire changing in 2005 for safety reasons? Oh boy, that did the trick. Ferrari won just a single race in 2005, ironically because of tire issues for all the non-Bridgestone tires. But regardless, 2005 saw Renault and Alonso end Ferrari's streak in conclusive fashion. Luca and the rest of the board that had been out of power since 1998 began pulling some strings and placing their pieces, but in the meantime, 2006 was different. Tire changing was made legal again because that was incredibly stupid even by FIA standards, and Ferrari once again lobbied the FIA to ban Renault's mass damper revolution, and Schumacher went on a charge. He won 7 races and was tied with Alonso for the lead of the championship with just 2 rounds to go. Schumacher ultimately lost the championship in 2006 by 13 points, thanks to a blown engine in Japan. And I'd like to think that the 2006 Japanese Grand Prix was a perfect metaphor for Ferrari by that point, because they were imploding. 2005's failure allowed Luca the justification he needed to get the board back on his side and swing power away from the foreigners and back to Italy. Nobody was forced out, so to speak, but they could see the writing was on the wall. Schumacher's trusty number 2, Rubens Barrichello, left for Honda after 2005. Braun then joined them as their team principal for 2007. Rory Byrne retired after 2006, only coming back a few years in the last few years as an advisor to help with the ground effect regulations. So with everyone gone, and Kimi Räikkönen being hounded by Luca, Schumacher didn't stick around and he was unceremoniously retired by Luca at the end of 2006. Todt was now the last man standing, and the Ferrari board didn't want any loose ends. Todt was made a special advisor and began laying the foundations for Stefano Domenicali to take over for 2008. Jean Todt, being Jean Todt, left Ferrari a phenomenal retirement present. The F2007 and its evolution, the F2008. The car that Ferrari took their last constructors' titles with, and Raikkonen became their last drivers' champion in 2007. The golden era was over, and Ferrari are still chasing its shadow to this day. For the first time since 1981, Jean Todt found himself without a team to manage. So he did the next best thing, and managed the entirety of motorsport by becoming the president of the FIA in 2009, and he was the exact same person as president as he was the general manager of Ferrari. Quiet, efficient, and understated. He was one of the leaders of the development of the Halo device, a system which has saved countless lives over the years across open-wheel motorsport. It wasn't a perfect reign, for sure, but after watching MBS these last few years, I think we would all welcome him back with open arms. But he retired in 2021, and has since doubled down on his part-time role as Special Envoy to Road Safety for the United Nations. Jean Todt is a figure who is almost completely unknown to the general public. If you do know him, it's probably because he married Michelle Yeoh. But to motorsport fans, he's the greatest manager to ever hold the title. He managed to calm down both the French and the Italians. That alone deserves France's highest civilian honor. His simple, effective, and fair management style was adaptable to any motorsport environment. Whether it's at sea level around Monaco or 14,000 feet up Pikes Peak, he made it work beautifully. It's a shame how his motorsport career ended success after success after success with Peugeot and then Scuderia Ferrari, and yet even the great Jean Todt wasn't immune to the slimy politics of the prancing horse. But he still went out on a high. The last time Ferrari won the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships, the last time the Tifosi could say, "This year was our year." And it's all because of one French puppet master from business school.